Penis.
To vagina.
Vagina.
To penis.
Back to penis.
Back to penis. Wait.
I don't know. Let's talk about EMILIA PEREZ. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode of Two Peas on a Podcast. Gerald is here with you, where we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week. And over on the other side, he is a podcast host that has been reassigned as a... I don't know. I don't have anything. Nicholas, how are you, brother?
God, we're like 20 seconds into the show, and he's already making trans jokes. This is going to be a long one, folks, so settle in.
Oh, man.
I'm so sorry about the cold open. You got the amazing Jay Ledbetter last week on the draft. I told you that call. He comes in and kills it with the cold open. Now it's right back to these goobers and their shenanigans this week. What's up, baby? How's it doing?
Well, it's good, man. We need him. We don't know what we're doing on the cold opens. We come up with that on the fly, and it's usually very, very stupid. So I apologize. I want to say one thing here from the start. Like we're gonna kick off this whole show. We got a lot of different stuff we're going to talk about tonight. Yeah.
But Gerald, I got to ask you something.
Oh,
you gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
Now, once again,
you played the sound drop, so
I have to come to you with the question of why don't you let me watch good movies for this show? Because we talked about it last time. It was like 2 weeks ago, right? We talked about Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield had a new movie out called We Live in Time, which I really wanted to see. And subsequently, in the last 2 weeks, I did go to see it. It's a 4-star banger. It's real good, Gerald. It's like right up my alley. She's a chef. She's Florence Pugh.
It's good.
It's a really sad movie, but it's also a really moving movie about kind of living your life to the fullest, which is something that I'm very, very big about. It's got Florence Pugh in it. Did I mention Florence Pugh is in it?
I think Florence Pugh's in it, yeah.
And you didn't let me watch it for this show.
In my defense...
That's not two. I want to point that out. That's now 2 4-star movies that I have rated from this year that you did not put on the schedule for us.
Right, which was not intentional, but I don't want to give away our thoughts on this movie quite yet, at least not in detail. But, you know, when EMILIA PEREZ got put on the calendar for us, it had just won the jury prize at the Cannes Film Festival. It to this day, as we're sitting here,
and the actress award, it won,
and the actress award as well.
The 4 leads and the 4 lead actresses in the film won the ensemble. I guess for that.
Yep. And as we're sitting here right now, it is still in a lot of pundits' predictions for Oscars, for Academy Awards, not just performance, but a lot of other things, including film. So some of that's going to play into my conversation I want to have with you about the movie tonight. But anyway, my point is, it's not that I expected this to be a bad movie when I scheduled it for us, because I don't want to watch bad movies.
I'm not even saying this is a bad movie yet. We haven't even talked about this.
I know.
I'm just
you said, why can't you watch good movies?
2 4-star bangers.
You just want movies with Florence Pugh in them.
Well, I mean, listen, Pugh's going to have to try hard. Now, I've never seen Black Widow, and I'm not going to watch what's the garbage that she's going to be in for the MCU coming up?
The Thundercats?
Thunderbolts. It's not
Thunderbolts. Whatever.
The Thunderbolt. Like, okay, you want me to hate a Florence Pugh movie? I'll watch one of those because I'm sure both of those are terrible. Why? I mean, obviously that one's not out yet, but it's an MCU movie, so by default, it's already terrible. But yeah, I mean, it would have to try really hard for me to hate. But like I said, I mean,
I know, man. What did you think? So We Live in Time. You dug it.
I really dug it. It's really, really good. Really,
good.
Just a movie, like I said, it's a movie that really hits me close to home because I'm very much all about living life to the fullest, taking advantage of as many moments as you possibly can, and how it's a lot about the choices that we make in life and like how those choices kind of ripple through everything else that is our life. And everything, so I really, really love that, and I really, really loved seeing that. I mean, Garfield and Pugh are great; they're amazing in it.
One of my favorite things to do when I go to the cinema is to sit there when the credits are rolling and look at letterbox reviews that people have left for the movie that I just watched. And I don't know who it is. I apologize to somebody I don't follow. I just happened to see it. But one of the best things I saw after We Live in Time is a review somebody left on Letterboxd that said, "Be right back. I'm going to go lay in traffic and let Florence Pugh hit me with her car."
There's a shocking because I wrote my review on it. Like I logged it when I watched it a week ago, I think.
Yeah.
And I finally went in and added my review of it today, and then
Okay, check it out.
I went through some of the reviews that were in there. I usually do for films that we watch, and the number of reviews that are basically just derivations of I'm just going to go walk into traffic until Florence Pugh hits me with her car.
It's my new dating app. Yeah,
is exactly correct. If only we were that lucky for that to happen.
Oh man,
yes,
man, I tell you. Well, we're talking about Emilia Perez tonight, which of course is a musical. I know you're typically a musicals guy. You dig that genre of film. I know I've heard you talk about that in the past on other shows, and it's come up here a few times. So I want to start a segment that we bring up every few weeks. We resurrect it. I got a couple things I want to talk to you about tonight, Nick, that'll segue us into this musical discussion as we spill the peas this week.
Oh, no, not the peas. Not the peas. Ah! Ah!
Man, God, I love that sound drop.
That's so good, isn't it?
So, Emilia Perez musical. Today, my wife and I got to go to an advanced screening of Wicked, Part 1, which is coming out next Friday, Thanksgiving week. A big thing on the docket for Universal Pictures, one of the bigger holiday films expected to be this year. Obviously, a wildly successful musical.
Which has been everywhere, by the way. Like, literally, that movie's their marketing budget must be insane for a wicked movie, a Broadway like musical turned movie musical. That's crazy.
Speaking of marketing for Wicked, here's the first story I want to pitch at you that came out last week. Mattel's Wicked movie dolls mistakenly list a porn site on their packaging. So the website for the Wicked film is wickedmovie.com. If you just go to wicked.com, it is Wicked adult film website. It got plastered on thousands of dolls of Elphaba and Glinda that went out. The site apparently crashed. You were just talking about Black Widow, by the way. They do a Black Widow XXX parody on there. They're kind of known for parodying popular culture items to be porn. What happened here, man?
Black Widow.
Who?
I'm trying to figure out how you
what are
make
your
Black
thoughts
Widow
here?
a porn title.
What are your thoughts here? How did somebody
Black Dildo?
How did this get missed? Yeah, Black Dildo. That should be it for sure.
I'm trying to think now. How do you make Wicked into a porn movie? This is what I'm more interested in. How do you make Wicked into a porn movie?
Dicked, but you pronounce it Dicked.
Dickhead. Put a little accent over it, so it's like fancy. It's like bougie. It's like bougie getting dicked.
Dicked.
I mean, who knows? Somebody who's who's never gone to the Wicked movie website was just like, oh, presumably the website for this is just wicked.com.
Oh my God!
Why?
Man.
Here's the thing. This is probably something that nobody ever checks because most of the time it's probably whatever movie it is probably that's the URL that you go to.
Yeah.
Just not assuming that. So it's probably just an oversight that nobody checked. This is very non-news, Gerald. It's just something that happens.
Seems like a bit of a bonehead move there on the marketing department.
Bonerhead.
Speaking of bonehead moves, I don't know, maybe you're on board with this one, but People named their sexiest man alive that they do every year before the end of the year, and this year it is Mr. John Krasinski. What do you think? You did not win it yet again. I can't believe it. I submitted my vote for you, but I don't know.
Well, how can I win with this guy in the running here? Like, I mean, nobody's ever
John Krasinski?
Vote for me.
Thoughts? Is he sexy? What do you think? Are you okay with this?
He's the complete package. Come on, he's sexy. He's funny. We get to see all the memes once again of. God, now I can't remember his name. God, what's his name?
Jim from The Office.
No, mother.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I hate.
You're talking about Jim from The Office, the Asian dude.
Yeah.
Randall Park. I know.
Randall Park. That's what I just couldn't remember. I
was going along with the bit, but I know what you were saying.
I was trying to think of the actor's name, but I love seeing the memes of Randall Park named sexiest man alive, all the pictures and stuff like that. Like, it's funny. Yeah. I mean, but it's John Krasinski. I mean, he's.
Well, I thought this was the year of Glenn Powell, though, right? I mean, I thought it was going to be Glenn Powell for sure. I mean,
I mean, he is in the #1 movie of the year still and counting. We're into November. We're chugging our way to Thanksgiving right now.
The P's highest rated film of the year.
Twisters is still the #1 movie of the year, baby.
Well, Nick, you famously care about the Oscars deeply, and you'll be covering that with me a lot in the next few months.
Well, You'll be telling me a lot about it, and I'll be like, oh, I care about this.
Well, here's one thing that I hope you're pumped about. Conan O'Brien has been announced as the host for next year's broadcast, the 97th Annual Academy Awards. He's hosted the Emmys before. He's hosted the MTV Movie Awards before, but he's never hosted the Oscars. I love Conan. I always have. He's always been probably my favorite late-night host, aside from maybe David Letterman back in the 90s I was into as well. Thoughts on Conan hosting the broadcast? Because, I mean, if anything you say about the Oscars is that it's really kind of missed that hosting part. They just haven't really hit lately.
No, it definitely hasn't. I mean, late night Conan is goated. It's best late night show of all time. Like late night, like not Tonight Show Conan, not whatever you did on TBS. Like that stuff was fine. That stuff wasn't bad, but Conan in that midnight 12:30 slot where it was just really random off the wall sketches. I just saw on Instagram. I just posted it to my stories like yesterday. The sketch about where they have a guy like training with a dog, like who's an attack dog dressed in a bodysuit, and then they're talking about how the dog's trained not to go for the face, but then the dog pulls out a gun and shoots the guy. Like random off the wall stuff like that. Like I absolutely love Conan. I don't care. I'm not going to watch the Oscars.
What?
So I don't care.
Even with Conan hosting?
No, I don't. I stopped watching the Oscars years ago. And now, especially since Trump won, I do not want to hear a bunch of goddamn Hollywood liberals get on stage and complain. I really, really don't. I'm not interested in that.
You do a movie podcast with me. So what are you going to do? Wake up the next morning and just see the highlights, kind of like
that's
you do
what that's what I always do. And then you'll
okay.
send me random stuff and you'll tell me about stuff, and I'll be like, okay, fine. You'll bring it up that week on the show, and it'll be in Spill the Peas. Oh, this movie won Best Picture. I'll be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Unless it's Twisters, then you'll be fucking running for the hills then.
Well, if it's Twisters, I'll be. If you feel it, chase it, baby. Let's go.
That's right.
I literally stopped watching the Oscars years ago. I very genuinely do not care about it anymore.
All right. Well, I care enough for the both of us, as you know. So I'm an awards guy, and I'm very excited. I mean, joking aside, I'm very excited.
I care about the golden peas, and I care about leaving comments in the chat that you ignore all the time.
I mean, I'm hosting an award show in my garage. I mean, I gotta be focused. Dan's supposed to be moderating the chat, not me. So when you're chatting to Dan. He's the chat, and I think you were too. Actually, I made you a what the hell do you call it, admin or whatever last year too.
Oh, I just let all the racist.
You just let all the racist stuff flew.
You need listen, bud. Hey, you need the view count is what you need.
Oh,
you
yeah.
Need the
That's
views
fine.
and the engagement in there. So
that's fine. Yeah,
we can weed
let
them
all
out
in there.
Once you hit 1 million subs, you get that like gold play button or whatever it is, and we can start weeding them out. All right.
Yeah. Until then, we're good. Just let them in there. I agree with you. Well,
all joking, their comments, and we'll push them all the way to the bottom, then nobody sees them.
All joking aside, real quick, I just want to say I'm beyond thrilled that Conan is hosting because I feel like it's going to add a new element to the broadcast that's just been missing.
I love Conan. He's gonna do a great job because he's Conan. Like, did you see him on Hot Ones when he was on Hot Ones? Like, so goddamn funny. Like, he's just sitting there, like, chugging the last dab, like, just absolutely just living in the moment. Like that one meme of him that's come out from it now where he's like, I'm fine. I'm perfectly fucking fine.
Yeah,
where he's like rubbing the last dab on his chest. I adore him. I really do. He's absolute goat as far as late night. Him and Carson to me is always going to be the pinnacle of late night.
For me it's him and Letterman, but those two dudes, every day. And
he's going to do great. But I'm not going to watch the Oscars, so I don't care.
All right, well, that's fine. You'll be watching the Golden Peas at least, so I guess I can't complain too much.
I might. What night is that? I might be busy then.
I don't know. I haven't decided yet. All right, let's talk about EMILIA Perez. Now, what we do, guys, before we start out every review is we like to give our scores out of 10 up front, and we have not discussed it with each other as of yet. And tonight's score is for EMILIA Perez. It's what we call the early score reveal.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm going to score, and then I never score. It's not fair.
All
righty.
You think
Beavis would score if he went to Wicked.com?
Maybe.
Score with
if he bought one of those Wicked dolls, he's in. He's got the website right there. The Cannes Film Festival winner
would be the porn title name. Beavis in Butthead would be the
Beavis in Butthead. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. Wow.
Bow, chicka, wow, wow.
That sounds like maybe we review that one this week. You know what I'm saying?
Put it on the list.
So Cannes Film Festival winner, been kind of rained down on possible Oscars predictions. EMILIA PEREZ, directed by Jacques Ayoudard, and we are going to give you our scores out of 10. We've not talked about it yet. Here we go. Nick, I'm going to count us in, and we'll see what we got here.
Scared.
3, 2, 1. Matchy.
Ooh, yay, good.
So we got 2 4s.
We
got a
both
4 from
thought
Nick.
it sucked.
4 from Nick, a 4 from me, a 4 overall.
This is. Let me just. I'm gonna bury the lead
man.
right from the outset here. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one of those points is for each of the 4 female leads in the film. Although Adriana Paz is not really. She's a very, very minor character, only in like the 3rd act of the film. But I mean, like the female stars in the film, fantastic. Everything else about this just flat out sucks.
Yeah. So let's do some spoiler-free thoughts in addition to what you just said there, Nick. But this was, to put it mildly, a disappointment. First of all, I'm not a. It should be stated that the duo here in front of you, Nick, is more of a musicals lover than I am. I have been to quite a few musicals in person on stage. I've seen the movie adaptations, and I almost always, in fact, I'm trying to think, but I think maybe never, or at least extremely rarely, prefer the movie version of those types of stories. I always like seeing them on the stage. They just hardly ever work for me in movie format. Now, if it's a musical that is first introduced as a movie, like a la 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 Land or something like that, that's different. But if it was like adapted from the stage to the screen, it just usually doesn't work for me as a film. Okay, now there's been exceptions, but for the most part. So this is another one that it's just not for me, man. Like I just, the language barrier is one thing because it's a Mexican story. It's in Spanish for the most part. I'm with you in terms of the performances. I freaking loved all the performances in this movie. There's one, and I'm not kidding, one out of maybe 20 songs that I'll ever even remember or listen to again. The El Mal one that Zoe Saldana does in the awards banquet, where she's in the like red suede pantsuit or whatever. That number that she does, I love. But other than that, I don't even remember any of the songs. I think they were very they weren't showy. It almost wasn't a musical almost. It didn't really feel like one, with the exception of 1 or 2 songs here and there. It was just super underwhelming. The ending was like a fucking train wreck. We'll get into it on the spoiler side because I don't want to talk about why that pissed me off right this second. But as a musicals guy, I'll flip it over to you now. What do you think? General thoughts without spoiling anything.
I mean, this reminds me of another movie that we watched not too long ago on this very show, which also touted itself as a musical, but really didn't have anything to do with being a musical outside of like 1 or 2 numbers, 1 or 2 moments. Same thing with Joker 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Joker Folia Poo Poo.
This movie wraps itself in this idea that it's a musical, but a lot of it's not like your overly showy, big stagey, huge choreographed set pieces type of musical outside of a couple of different sequences. A lot of the other ones are more quiet moments that are almost just kind of character reflections, where it's just kind of a character, I want to say, monologuing to themselves, or like their inner monologue, but it's an inner singing kind of thing instead. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really work. Tonally, this movie is literally all over the place. Like, we did the cold open, we made a joke of it, but in the cold open, there literally is a song. Now, so this movie is, we didn't even really talk about what the movie is necessarily, but basically a lawyer is hired to help this drug lord, Manitas, get gender reassignment surgery because he's always wanted to be female. And then years later, the lawyer re-encounters EMILIA PEREZ, the titular character who is, the drug lord that has gone through the transition, and hijinks ensue. But again, it's totally all over the place. At different times, this wants to have all these weighty thoughts about being trans, which we're two straight white dudes. Like we're way out of our depth in terms of the conversation about this. We do not from the outset have any clue as to what life is like as a non-white trans person, let alone a white trans person. Like, so I can't even touch on that part of it, but this is also getting ripped apart in the trans community too, because I was really interested in reading reviews from trans reviewers to see what they thought of it, and it's getting ripped apart in those circles too. This is not doing well. I'm like it might have gotten the jury award at Cannes and the actress award, but this thing is getting mauled, Gerald, on like Letterboxd and by critics and stuff like that. Like there are some who love it, but there's a musical number, like I said, in the film where it's like penis to vagina, like literally singing, like it's supposed to be like an over the top tongue in cheek kind of comedic thing, but then it also wants to try to tackle these weighty things like cartels in Mexico and the disappearance, there's this whole plot point. Well, we'll talk about. Well, it's not even really whatever, but it's like there's this foundation for missing people associated with cartel activity. That's a whole plot point of the film, and it wants to kind of try to take that in there, and then it's just so tonally messy and all over the place. And I just, honest to God, as good as Carla Sofia Gascon's performance is as Emilia Perez, definitely probably the showiest, like the best performance in the movie, at least I would say. I don't buy the writing of the character. The writing of the character is it really rings false to me, and what the movie ultimately tries to do, and I think it spectacularly fails at it, is it tries to make this drug kingpin, this like major super criminal, super menacing too, like ridiculously menacing character when you first meet him, tries to make that drug lord, who's clearly done a lot of unspeakable things, a sympathetic character just by making them trans. And I don't necessarily know if that's anything that trans people would want, but it doesn't ring true at all, because the whole movie, I'm watching the whole movie and I'm like, but they literally were the head of a drug cartel. And when are we going to talk about that? And when is that going to be an issue here for us to talk about as this movie kind of goes on? But I don't know. Do you want to bring the spoiler wall down so we can get into it a little more?
I to touch on what you kind of said there, I was letting you wrap up your thought, but I reached out. I actually have a couple friends in the trans community, and I actually kind of reached out to them after seeing this because I didn't want to be insensitive, and I kind of thought to myself that it was kind of an offensive take to that community in this movie, and I was reaffirmed on that. We'll talk more about that on the spoiler side. Dan's going to run a promo break, and when we come back, we will be into full spoilers for Emilia Perez. We will be right back. All right, welcome back, guys. We are discussing Emilia Perez tonight. That's the main review. We're also going to have a really fun Mount Rushmore later at the end of this discussion, where we give you the 4 pinnacle singers turned actors, singers who can also act, double threats, whatever you want to call it. That will be our Mount Rushmore tonight. That popped in my head because Selena Gomez is in this film. She plays Benitez's wife, and I didn't necessarily want to start here, but we'll talk about performances, and that way we can, if anything is spoiled along the way, we'll just have a conversation. I thought Selena, who I'm a stan of, I love her, generally speaking, music and acting, I thought she was underused brutally here. You were talking about the writing for Sofia Garçon, which I also agree with, but for Selena Gomez's character, even more so, like, just weird. I mean, she's like kind of the subservient wife to Benitez in the beginning of the film, and it kind of goes through the progression like you said, and she transitions, and she's now Emilia, but at the same time, Selena's character, all she thinks is that she lost her husband in some drug, fueled shootout or whatever, and he's dead now. She's a single mom, and she's just always kind of helpless in the movie. Like, she's kind of like this helpless person with naivety.
Until she's not.
Until she's not, out of nowhere, which I hated the last act of this film because there's no comeuppance for any character in the movie. Any of them.
Of all of the chords they could have played, and I really hate to jump to the ending of the film at
that's
this
fine.
early, but like of all the chords they could have played, when you have Emilia Perez get kidnapped, I was for sure that it was somebody from the old cartel days that finally discovered that Manitas had transitioned and that Emilia was Manitas and went after them
Right,
for
which would have made
XYZ
sense.
reason, which would have made complete sense. But like I said, the movie's not interested in delving into the unspeakable whatevers that this leader of this drug cartel has done. They want to just throw all that out the window because they want to try to make this character sympathetic just because they're trans. Right. And like I said, but the whole part of me is still over here, like, but she's still the leader of a goddamn drug cartel. Like, even if she faked her death and all that kind of stuff and all this other stuff, like, why is that all coming up there? But then, the third act of the movie, after they have a big blow up, ends with Jesse kidnapping her, Emilia, I mean, and then ends up getting them all killed.
Basically, yeah.
Like, but huh?
And then Zoe's left with the children, and I mean, so anyway, I agree with you, but what I wanted to say, because I feel like this is going to make me angry if I start talking about some of the kind of politics of this movie, or the PC-ness, if you will, because I'm not a trans guy. Like you said, we don't have any direct connection to that community to really be able to speak educationally on it. However, what I thought when I was kind of watching the film and was kind of like weirded out by the sex change scene that you mentioned is the most glaring, like, what the fuck? Because first of all, it hasn't been called sex change since like the 80s. It's a gender reassignment surgery or gender confirmation. So what I thought the movie was doing wrong here from a message standpoint, which if it's trying to be a crime thriller about this drug lord, that's one thing. But if you're trying to relay a message that you feel is important from the trans community, so to speak, then it never treats that transition to Emilia as valid. Like, it's always kind of like questioning her transition, whether it's through the doctor saying things like, transitioning is not going to save your soul. And there's other points in the movie when like the masculine parts of her personality will come out, and the kid mentions that she smells like her dad, and her voice.
She literally refers to herself as half man, half woman, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
She literally, when they're having the fight, when Emilia and Jesse are having the fight, throws her down and then like reassumes the masculine voice to start screaming at her and all that kind of stuff. Right. It's like it dips its toes like way too much into that whole thing, and that played really weird to me too.
And that was why, that played strangely to me, because that was why what I felt like they were almost saying, the filmmaker, was almost saying, was that Manitas wanted the transition or the reassignment to be in disguise, not to be who she fully thought she was.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Not doing it for the gender that she was actually connected to, since she was a child or whatever. It was more like, I just want to get out. I want to basically be able to have my cake and eat it too, and escape from this drug life and still live on. But in order to do that, I have to be somebody completely different. And I felt like the movie was trying to do that, almost like if this movie had been made in the 90s, for example, like, you know what I mean? It wouldn't have had a message behind it, and it would have been just like, oh, somebody, I'm going to, I've actually saw somebody mention Mrs. Doubtfire, which is like not what I think this movie intended to be compared to.
Well,
but that's kind of what it evolves into.
You say that, but there was at one point in this movie specifically, so blah blah blah. And I have a lot of thoughts about Zoe Saldana's character. Zoe Saldana's fantastic in this movie. The lawyer character, completely pointless to this entire movie. Does not need to be in it whatsoever. Literally has no character arc or anything like that whatsoever in the movie. Like, from right at the very, very beginning, we see her writing, writing up a thing to get a dude off who she knows was, who she knows killed his wife, but really they peddle it off as a suicide, and like because she's an attorney, like she's working for an attorney's office that's doing this.
Kind of crooked.
It's literally the only, like, she has a crisis of conscience at that point in the movie, but like literally nothing else about that character is explored or anything in the entire length of the movie. She's completely pointless to everything else that happens here. She just is like the kind of the MacGuffin that Emilia Perez needs to kick off a couple of different things. But what you're talking about is when they bring the family to Emilia's house. So Emilia,
right,
4 years later, finds the attorney again and is like, hey, I need you to bring my kids, who they sent to Switzerland after she faked her death to live in hiding. She then is like, no, I want my family to come back to Mexico and live with me, bring them back to Mexico so they can live with me. It almost feels like, now it doesn't do this, thankfully, but there is a point in the movie when it almost feels like it's going to be this really weird trans-Mexican Mrs. Doubtfire thing where it's going to be hijinks until the family discovers that it's really
right,
Manitas, and that Manitas isn't dead and just transitioned into Emilia Perez. That's what it literally, there is a point in the film when it does feel like that's what they're doing.
yeah.
And that when that happened, I'm like, please, for the love of God, don't let that be this movie.
Yeah, and that goes to your point earlier that you made about the tone too, being all over the place, because like,
yeah,
that could have happened at that point, and it would have made the movie even worse than what we're saying it is. But at the same time, it wouldn't have been a surprise because the tone was all over the place. Like, that scene about the sex change thing is like a slapsticky, like comedic, campy scene, or at least I think it's intended to be that way. And then you'll have these really dark, ominous.
Top, but yeah, there's a really weird tone to the scenes that precede it and that follow it. So it doesn't it doesn't really make any sense. I'm gonna make this statement flat out here, Gerald. If they would have kept Manitas, the transition to Emilia Perez, if Emilia Perez would have just been an asshole cartel leader and just been still not a good person after the transition, I probably would have enjoyed this movie a lot more. Because what is it about that transit? It's like that transit. What the film wants me to believe is that just making the transition was enough to all of a sudden make Emilia Perez be like
a good person.
I'm a good person now, instead of but all this different stuff. Like there's this whole subplot. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but there's a whole subplot where the character and the lawyer, they found. All on drug money, by the way, literally all on drug money. They found this nonprofit organization for families of people that are missing due to cartel and gang activity and things like that. But I never see enough from Emilia Perez to really buy into that kind of redemptive arc.
Well, that's also her guilt too, though, right? Like, I felt like that
there's a lot of guilt wrapped into
the whole reason that she was even like starting that organization was because a lot of those missing people she was probably responsible for as Benitez.
For sure.
Do you know what I'm saying? So it was a lot of that like buyer's remorse, and that guilt that she carried around with her to try to make it right in her own mind. Like, if I do enough good deeds, they'll make up for all the bad deeds I did in my previous life. But again, to your point, you can't transition from a man to a woman or vice versa and not still have the history of the things that you did as your previous self. Like, if you murdered people, if you raped people, if you did whatever, you still did it. Do you know what I mean? Just because you transitioned doesn't mean you didn't do that stuff.
It's so weird how the film really just wants to completely wash that away, like, and try to give Emilia this altruistic, noble purpose to try to make Emilia Perez a sympathetic character. But I just didn't buy that reformation, because here's what we know about Manitas. So after Rita, the lawyer, wins that case, gets a mysterious phone call, goes to a newsstand, is kidnapped and then bagged and gagged and driven to a remote area where Manitas has this meeting and is like, this is who I've always been. I've always felt like a woman inside. I need you to find me someone who can do this surgery, because apparently having literally limitless resources to do all this stuff, but doesn't know how to use Google to find whatever. That's that notwithstanding. But then literally Rita flies to one place, first class, literally gets the speech from Anitas, my infinite, limitless resources are at your disposal, then gets a phone call from one of Manitas's goons who's like, listen, bitch, and like gag and bags her with a it shoves a phone up to her ear and is like being really super menacing and stuff, like, you work faster, you're not like whatever.
Right.
Like literally all these hostile things. And then like the even shitter thing about it is if you're Rita, even when you run into Emilia Perez 4 years later, you just chill now. It's like, hey, every time we had an interaction previously, you literally had me bound and gagged. And,
Right.
And now we're just cool because
I think the movie
so baffling.
I think the movie fails in that respect, though, because and that could have been in the editing process or whatever, but I think that was like a gradual connection that Rita and Emilia gained. Because at the dinner, when she re-meets her again as Emilia, you can see that she is shocked and that she is a little scared about what's going to happen. But then it like cuts to her getting the kids, the wife and kids, and then the next thing you know, they're buddy-buddy. So I think it was like a gradual reconnection for them to become friends, but it just didn't iron that out enough for us, the viewer, to buy it. Like,
to be fair, it is a musical, and often in a musical, things are glossed over the span of a musical number. That's kind of the musical number's purpose in a musical, is to substitute in for those developmental moments. But I did not buy that. Like, that rang untrue to me as well.
Yeah.
And
I just don't. What's a bummer for me, aside from the things that kind of were just weird for me in terms of the trans representation, but aside from that, like, I just don't know what the point of this movie was. Like, because if it was a message about transgender and being who you truly are, regardless of what your history may be and what your background may be, that didn't come across at all, because we're sitting here talking about Mrs. Doubtfire as opposed to, somebody being their true soul and their true self.
Well, I mean,
and then you get to the end of the movie.
Go ahead. No.
Well, I was going to say, you get to the end of the movie, and it's like there's no ending for any of these main characters, because even Rita, who remains, now has these children that have lost both parents.
I was going to say, the only ones that really change are the kids, who have just been subjected to tons of emotional trauma by their parents. Repeated emotional trauma by their parents, I might add. And that's what I was going to say is, Emilia Perez is kind of a reprehensible character. Number one was the kingpin of a drug cartel.
Yeah.
And then believes that, she's always been a woman, wants to transition into being a woman and have all this, and that's great, but your method for doing that is to tell your family you're dead,
right?
Like to cause untold amounts of psychological trauma to your wife and children, and then bring them back, not be remorseful about it at all. Yeah. Like, there didn't feel to me to be any remorse for the like. That's why I was trying to figure it out too, Gerald. I was trying to figure out why the whole goddamn foundation, nonprofit, to find missing persons from cartel activity thing pissed me off so much, was because Emilia has literally no remorse about all of the things that would have happened to the children and and Jesse. No remorse about it whatsoever. We don't see any remorse from this character about. We see again in that dinner conversation 4 years later when she re-meets with Rita at the dinner, it's that quick musical number, a bit like, I want you to bring my children home to Mexico from Switzerland. I can't live without them. Like, what? Like, there's literally no remorse for, like I said, any of the torment and any of the trauma that they suffered.
It's a very selfish request.
Like, this character's a shithead, like a giant shithead. You get no comeuppance, nothing at all about the fact that she's a former cartel kingpin at all. No. Literally nothing about that, and it's. I
think we're supposed to. Again, I don't know. That's what kind of pisses me off about the movie and why I gave it such a low score, because I don't know. But I think we're supposed to feel for Emilia Perez that she had to live in this body that was not her, that she did not feel that was her for 40 years or whatever it was before she was able to finally transition to her true self. But the problem is, And why that doesn't work for me, and I don't buy that, is because when she does transition to Emilia, the filmmakers and the script treat it as a disguise, not as a new gender assignment. You know what I mean? Like, now I am the woman that I'm supposed to be. I don't get that, even in the songs that she chooses to sing, really.
Yeah.
So what I get more of is the Mrs. Doubtfire shtick, and I get more of like, oh, bring my kids back in here because I can't be without them, and like, which is very like almost like psychologically abusive in a way to the kids, and like just not a good situation. She's a shitty friend to Rita because Rita was a very successful lawyer in Mexico, albeit it was a firm that she didn't necessarily believe in, but she was very successful as a lawyer. And ever since she met back then Benitez until the end of this movie, her whole life is nothing but that. It's being run by whatever Emilia Perez wants, and that makes her a shitty friend, in my opinion. And I think we're supposed to be like, oh, Emilia Perez, yes, give her everything she wants because she lived for 40 years as Benitez. She's finally who she's supposed to be, but the characteristics that come along with somebody who would transition after several years to be who they truly are not there for Emilia Perez. Do you know what I mean? Like, the Benitez still comes out when she's angry, and it's almost like she's the Incredible Hulk or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's like too, like you said, she mentioned she's half man, half woman. That's almost kind of like how it's played, which is obviously, I wouldn't think the way...
That's exactly how it's played, yeah.
Right. And I wouldn't think the trans community would...
Well, no, that's a lot of what
something
I've read
like that up, but
is like those are like really old. A lot of what I read when I was reading some reviews from trans reviewers about this is these are really tired tropes about trans people that have been in movies for literally decades, about how, you know, you have to kill, like, you literally have to, your old self has to die, and like, I'm torn between two worlds, like, oh, I'm part this, and like all that kind of different stuff. You know, and while nothing, like, even me, like, as just a normal straight white dude, like, my experiences as a normal straight white dude is not everyone's experiences as a normal straight white dude. So you can't say that this film is true to every single trans person's experience and everything like that either. Yeah. But, like, you know, it taking even that part of it aside from it, like, there's a lot of scenes that are played for... Like, I don't even know how I was supposed to feel about them emotionally. Like, there's a couple of scenes where you get Emilia Perez talking to Jessie, his former wife, or her former wife, talking to her about, like, oh, did you love your husband? Like, all this different stuff.
Very selfish, and they're, you know, self-serving in the conversations and the things that she decides to do.
But I didn't find Emilia at all sympathetic like they wanted me to. So none of it really rang at, like, he just felt... And then you take Jesse is, you know, wants to go back to Mexico, decides to go back to Mexico to hook up with Gustavo, who was this person that she had apparently had an affair on Manitas with. Mm-hmm. And you have a scene in this movie where Emilia Perez has one of her thugs go beat the shit out of him and give him money to tell him to get out of the city. Mm-hmm. So all that, like, piece of shit cartel leader stuff is definitely still in there as soon as something doesn't go your way, because Jesse's engaged to be married and wants to move, and it's like, why would it even be a question of where I'm going to go with my kids? You're just their aunt. Like, you're not anybody. Like, you weren't anybody to us until a few months ago when you said, hey, come crash with me in Mexico. Like, we've never met you before. We don't know anything about you. It's like the whole scene just plays off as like this whole really, really weird thing. And like, am I supposed to feel sympathetic for Emilia in that situation? Like, all I felt like is it was just Emilia, like, trying to ruin Jesse's happiness at that point.
And then we get to the end, and, you know, Emilia, who has been kidnapped by Jesse, of course, Jesse unknowingly kidnapped her, you know, previous husband. And
which, how the hell did they?
I know. Fingers cut off. She's been beaten, whatever. She's tied up, you know. And in that moment, Emilia decides to basically tell her who she is. You know, that she's Benitez from a past life and whatever. In her own way, and she kind of tells her that, different things that only the two of them would know or whatever. And Gustavo and Jesse throw in the trunk, they leave, and on their getaway, Jesse realizes that's my husband in the trunk and starts kind of freaking out at Gustavo. And they end up running off the road, driving off a cliff. Presumably all of them are dead. You know, I mean, what are we doing here? That's my point too, is like, what is, because the trans,
I mean, it devolves straight into soap opera territory at that point, where the car drives off a cliff and then literally explodes. Like, I mean, it's just so over the top, like melodramatic at that point. It's just like,
this could have been a great statement movie that also doubled as a good crime musical. You know, if they had decided to, almost like you said, where Menditez transitions to Emilia, 4 years go by, whatever. She's this, beautiful woman now. She's in the body that she's supposed to be in. She's happy as a result of it, but she's still a drug lord. She's still what she is. Do you know what I mean?
Or even
instead of trying to separate those two things like that.
Even
you know what I mean?
Even if you want to play, there's some guilt or some remorse about the things that I've done in this life, and I really want to be free of it. We didn't get any of that before the transition, by the way, which would have gone a long, long way, I feel like, to be like, why do you want out of this life? Why do you want to do this? Not just because I want to become the person that I've always meant to be, like, I can't do this anymore, but I can't get out a normal way because obviously the cartel's going to hunt me down, find me, kill me. So I need to get out of this, for XYZ reasons, because I have this remorse and this guilt. Plant those seeds earlier, but also don't include the lawyer character at all, because the lawyer character is meaningless to this entire thing. Get rid of the lawyer character completely, because here's the thing. Emilia Perez, Manitas, not even the lead character of this movie.
No.
Like, not even until the second act where you really start actually focusing on that character. This is mostly Rita's movie for the first act. And Rita's a completely ancillary character to everything that happens in the plot.
And, Zoe Saldana as Rita is my pick currently for the Best Supporting Actress at this year's Academy Awards, to win it, I mean. However, that's crazy because she's lead in this movie. But they're going to campaign her as supporting, and they're going to campaign Sofia Garçon as lead. If anything, they're co-leads. But my point is, Emilia Perez's name is on the poster. This is the person that has transitioned, right? Which that story is trying to be prominent
plot
here.
Revolves around her,
right? So what are we doing? Like, what? I just don't know what the angle. I don't know what I'm supposed to take away from this movie unless I just freaking love musicals and I'm like, oh, the soundtrack's a banger, and which I can't even say that.
Musical, though. Like,
I know,
even as
I couldn't even say that.
It wasn't a good musical either. So it just
So I just don't know. I just don't know what we're supposed to take away because the message is very jumbled. I don't think it's very true and sympathetic to the trans community. I really don't. I feel like it's almost a slap in the face of the trans community, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not trans, but as I'm watching it, I just didn't
think
see
it's
how
be hilarious. I think it's going to be hilarious when this starts getting nominated for awards, because here's the thing. Transphobes are going to hate it. People like us who are, very pro-trans and very sympathetic to all that kind of stuff don't like this movie. A lot of people in the trans community, from what I've seen, don't like this movie. Nobody likes this movie except for the people that can.
Right, sure.
And
I mean, it'll have its defenders, I'm sure, but
this director is like he's like a big deal in France, I guess. I've never seen any of the other movies that this director has done, but is that it? Like, is it just because this is like a big deal French director and it was Cannes and they were just like,
maybe,
boy, yay?
I mean, the only other one he's done that I've heard of is The Sisters Brothers, which I know was pretty critically acclaimed too, but I never saw it. But I don't know, man. It doesn't work as a musical. I hated all the songs with the exception of that one banger that Zoe Saldana has in the dining hall at the awards banquet. Yep. But that's literally one song out of 20 that I enjoyed.
It wants to be about drug kingpins. It wants to be about that whole musical number is about, they're throwing this big banquet for all these donors and stuff and talking about taking a hard line against the cartel, but they're all also taking bribes and schmoozing, and are in the pocket of the cartels because, of course, the cartels have so much control over everything.
Yeah.
So you've got all those different aspects to it. It wants to be a comedy with the penis to vagina and like all that stuff, like over the top campy moments. It has that weird Mrs. Doubtfire vibe to it. It's like, there's so many elements of this movie that are totally all over the place. It just doesn't work. Like no part of it works at all.
It's a weird roller coaster for sure. I just want to wrap up by saying I do absolutely love the performances, and I hate to take anything away from the actresses in this movie. I thought Zoe Saldana.
That's my
I know
right there.
I know you mentioned Sofia Gasson earlier. For me, it was Zoe Saldana who kind of carried the film. I mean, she was like just so good in this movie.
She did something with nothing because there was nothing on the page for that character.
That's true.
I would agree. I mean, I agree. Zoe Saldana's performance is fantastic, but yeah, same thing as you said about Selena Gomez is given nothing to do here, and Adriana Paz is so late of an entry into the movie, and you only get like 2, maybe 3 scenes with that character. So I mean, it's a good performance, it's a really good performance, but
she was the most real, really, of the characters. Like she was the one that was the most believable. You know, had that fear that when she came into the office that they were going to say they found her husband. And she had that fear like, oh, shit, you found him. That means he's going to beat me again. You know, I'm not going to be able to escape him again.
Well, see,
and
I so
she had
desperately
that sense
wanted...
of relief when she found out that he was found dead. You know what I mean?
I so desperately was waiting for someone from, you know, Manitas' past in the cartel world to show up that I thought when we see Epifania's character show up at that office and put the knife in her purse that she was somebody working for the cartel that was going to stab her.
Something. Yeah.
I was like, this movie's got it. And maybe to its credit, it doesn't take the predicted turn in that sense. But then again, like I said, I find Emilia to be such a selfish character. And I really, really feel like the sympathy that the film tries to garner for that character is so unearned. That I desperately wanted it to play those tired old chords of like somebody from the cartel life is going to come back, and like that's what I'm thinking. Like starts this nonprofit is all over TV. I'm like somebody's going to see the TV and be like, wait.
I just want to mention before we get to our Mount Rushmore too that I spoke to a friend of mine in the LGBT community, and like I said earlier, and we were talking at a screening of A Real Pain that we saw last week, and I won't mention her name, but we were talking, and she said that a big issue she had with the movie, too, was the lack of Mexican representation in this Mexican story, because all the main actresses, none of them are from Mexico. The accents that are used are not authentic, so people from Mexico can point it out. It's like if you're from Boston versus New York, like you can point out different accents from different Latin countries and stuff like that. And, you know, Selena is maybe Puerto Rico. I'm not sure. I can't remember. And Zoe Saldana is from Colombia, I think, or Brazil or something like that. So they're very different, like, styles of languages and accents. And it just wasn't authentic from that perspective either, which I didn't even think about because, you know, I'm a white dude in North Carolina, so
well,
I don't know.
It's a foreign language movie. I mean, it's not something we're gonna place. It's like if you watch a British movie where they're having somebody do an accent from a different region of Britain or whatever, that we wouldn't catch up on that nuance because, of course, we're not in that culture. There's layers to this movie. Like, go if you're somebody who's interested in more takes on this movie, go find reviews by people in the trans community. Go find people.
And it has defenders.
I read reviews by like Latina trans people, you know, where like because I really wanted to try to understand and see what other people were saying about it, because we're just 2 white dudes. Like, I mean, I can't comment on any of that kind of stuff. It felt odd to me that like their whole aim of this movie was to try to make the characters sympathetic, even though they were a drug lord, just because they were trans. Like that whole thing to me felt really disingenuous. And I mean, like I said, I mean, the character's so. I read a review somewhere, Gerald, and I can't remember where it was now, but one of the reviews I read that the director doesn't realize that Emilia is the villain of the movie.
Right.
And like, I mean, I really wish it would have played it that way. I really wish it would have.
Me too. And and I'm glad you agree with me, because I almost kind of felt bad taking that angle, because I know that's not what we're supposed to think. You know what I mean? Like, she's supposed to be at least an anti-hero, if not the hero. And I just never thought that because of the way she was painted. And
I just think about how fucked up those kids are going to be.
These Benitez characteristics that kept popping back up.
Like, for real. I mean, number one, obviously their father was a drug kingpin. Maybe however much of that life they had. But I mean, kids see way more than you think they do, no matter what. Like, kids see way more. Like, parents that fight all the time, we don't do it in front of the kids or any of that kind of stuff. Like, kids see a lot more than you think they do. So, they were exposed to that. Then they're exposed to their father dying. Then this whole thing where they get uprooted out of their life again, sent back to Mexico where they don't like it, like they want to go back to Switzerland, and then their mom gets murdered, as well as far as they're going to know anyway. Like, oh, my mom blew up in a car. Like, what? And now these kids are just, wards of this random attorney?
And then on top of that too, Nick, if you think about it, they really became attached to Emilia, who they thought was their aunt, right? So really, they lost their aunt, their dad, and their mom in the span of 4 years. You know what I mean? So in their head, because they were pretty close to Emilia too at the end.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scene in this movie after the big blow up that Emilia and Jesse have where they play this phone call conversation, sort of musical number between you have Jesse on one side and Emilia on the other with
right, and
Rita in the middle, and like they're going back and forth, like having these conversations. Like, Rita's having conversations with each of them at the same time, and we're getting to hear different snippets of dialogue from those conversations and whatnot, where it's basically Rita telling Emilia, like, what did you think was going to happen? Like,
right.
Like, why didn't, like, you should have known this was going to happen eventually, that maybe eventually Jesse would want to do whatever. Because as far as Jesse knows, her husband's dead. Like, it doesn't matter if you're standing here living, breathing, you killed him. Like quite literally, he faked his death and is now Emilia Perez. So it's like all these different things. It's like that needed to come about an hour earlier in the movie.
And that also puts desecration to the sacrifice that Emilia made in her transition to be her true self, because she made that sacrifice because she had to be the person that she was supposed to be, a woman. But in an effort to do that, because of her cartel ties and everything, she had to not be with her wife anymore, not see her kids anymore. So then when she backtracks on that and turns into Mrs. Doubtfire and wants him to come back, she's, you know what I'm saying? Like, invalidating all of that stuff that she sacrificed at the early part of the film, which would have also helped us connect to her. Like, oh, she gave up her family. That's how important it was to her. But instead, it just becomes like, oh, no, I want to see my kids again, bring them back to live with me. Like, of course that's not going to work out. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to catch up to you at some point. So, all right, so double fours on Emilia Perez. By the way, it is streaming on Netflix. If you guys want to see what all this hubbub is about, you can check out the musical on Netflix. And it is playing in limited release as well. But it's a 4 from Nick and a 4 from me as well. So we match up there, and it's a 4 overall on Emilia Perez. Nick, you want to do the Mount Rushmore this week? We got a fun one here. I'm excited to see which way you go. So every week in relation to the film, Nick and I do our Mount Rushmore. That's kind of related to the film that we're discussing. So this week we're going to do double threats. We're going to do singers that took on acting, who we think the singer/actor double threats are on the Mount Rushmore. And we've never had this happen before, Nick, but we both rated it a 4. So who goes first?
No, we flip a coin maybe? I don't know.
You want to flip a coin? I don't have one.
All right.
Let's do rock, paper, scissors. You want to do that?
What the hell?
Here we go. Rock,
all right. Jesus
paper,
Christ. Hang on.
scissors.
Wait. I didn't even start yet. You
all
gotta
right,
wait. All right, ready? Go. All right.
Yeah. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
I can't even see what you did. Hold it in front of the camera.
I did scissors. All right. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. But paper beats rock, right?
God damn it.
All right, so I'll go first.
One time
the audio audience is going to be, what the fuck are these guys doing? All right, sorry, audio audience. Okay, I'm gonna go real easy here on Washington's Face or whoever. And this is my dude. You know it. And I knew you weren't going to put him on there anyway, so there was no danger of that. But number one with a bullet on the Mount Rushmore of singers who took on acting is Elvis Presley. The king, brother.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I mean, probably in a Rushmore argument, I'll buy it. It has to be there, kind of, because Elvis had a prolific film career. So
for sure.
I buy the placement on Rushmore, but no, I was never going to nominate. I was never going to nominate him to be on the Rushmore, though.
I didn't think you would, but you're okay with me throwing him up there on Washington's face, yeah? We'll leave him up there.
Stop throwing things at our president's faces, Gerald. God.
All right, man. You're who's your on Lincoln's face or whatever? Who you putting up there?
Well, I mean, he's been a little bit disgraced of late,
Oh boy,
and
Kevin Spacey didn't have a singing career. You can't put.
wow, jeez, took a hard left-hand turn there, bud.
Wow, sorry. Go ahead.
He's been a little bit disgraced lately, and it's not like he's done nothing but bangers, but I would wager way more people actually know of him because of his acting career than his singing career. But of course, the one and only Welcome to Earth, Will Smith, baby. Smith's got to be
I'm glad you said Will Smith. I was going to hold on to him to make sure he made
Smith's
it.
got to be up there because, I mean, like I said, the way I looked at this when I was picking people for this list, too, is how prolific their acting career has been. Like, how huge of a pantheon of acting have they had, and in some ways, like I said, in Smith's case especially, like I said, definitely had a great career as a musician too, and still occasionally released the odd track or odd album here or there. But like I said, I mean again, Independence Day, I mean the litany of all the different things. What did he win an Oscar for? It was Ali, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was it Ali? Yeah, I think it was Ali. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Oscar went. Well, he won more than one Oscar now. Even though he smacked up Chris Rock at the ceremony.
He won one for
he was
playing Serena Williams' dad or whatever.
Yeah, dad in that movie. I can't remember what that movie was called. I didn't see it, but like I said, I think more people probably know Will Smith now because of his acting versus his music, which I think is interesting because I don't think anybody, although everybody knows that Elvis did have a pretty extensive film career, I don't think anybody would know Elvis. I think you think of Elvis, you just think King of Rock and Roll, Elvis Presley.
Music first, yeah, music first. There's a couple kind of modern ones that I really want both of them to be on there, but I don't know if that's going to make sense. I'll tell you what I'm going to say. So when I'm trying to think of this, I'm trying to think of kind of like what you were just saying with Elvis. I'm trying to think of like people that made a name for themselves as a singer. Like they were already like A-list celebrity as a singer. And then they added movies to their resume and they became popular as a movie star too. So with that little caveat, based on some of the movies that this gentleman has done, and you and I have actually talked about a few of them on our movie draft episodes, but I think Mark Wahlberg. I mean, the dude has got, I mean, have you seen his act? Have you ever like really looked at his like movie resume? I mean, it is
another
a
one that I don't think
banger after banger, dude.
Most people probably wouldn't recognize for being a singer anymore,
I know. It's just, but I mean, like Boogie Nights, The Departed, the other guys.
The Departed.
Yeah, The Departed. I mean, the guys, the fighter we talked about with Jay Ledbetter when he was on. I mean,
Transformers, whatever number Transformers sequel. No, not that one.
Yeah, are you okay with Wahlberg on there? Because I had another one that I was thinking of too. That's kind of in the same era.
I don't hate Wahlberg. I'm interested to see who else you might have had in mind.
I think it's just too short of a resume, but I wanted to say Lady Gaga.
I had the exact same mindset. Has been great in the stuff that we've seen her in, although wicked underused in Joker 2. But I mean,
she's only really been in like three big
films. She's got such a short resume. Like that conversation needs to be had again in about 10, 15 years, and then.
So I'll stick with Wahlberg then.
Maybe she'll kick Wahlberg's ass, throw him off of Roosevelt's face, and jump on there herself.
Wahlberg dancing on Teddy's face, Dirk Diggler swinging around up there.
Yeah,
all right,
like I said, I love Gaga, but no, not for Rushmore, not yet.
I know.
This was going to be a weird swing for me because I'm looking at the short list I made of people left. Now, there's one that's a very much we're not doing a movie draft right now, but it's very much a heart pick. I don't know that despite the fact that he had an extensive film career for literally like 4 decades, I don't think anybody would know him for his acting outside of 2 movies. Mm-hmm. I've got that one. And I'm not going to tell you who it is yet. I'm going to table it just for a second because I also think you can make a good argument for get a little female representation up on the Mount Rushmore here as well.
We got to put a lady, by the way. I was going to tell you. I feel like we have to because we have 3 dudes now, right?
Yeah.
As it stands.
I feel like Mandy Moore. What do you feel about a Mandy Moore?
Interesting. So you're doing a little bit of TV too, then I bet too with
Well,
Parenthood.
your criteria was not
No, that's
film
true.
Performances specifically.
No, that's true.
Like
what about-
I don't really know any of her music, but I watched. I think I watched half of This Is Us. I think I dipped out.
I
on
meant
it
This
after,
Is
like,
Us.
4
I said
seasons.
Parenthood, but I meant This Is Us.
But yeah, she was also in. She's like Walk to Remember. She's been in a lot of different movies, so I think that there's a good case to be made for Mandy Moore. Who else you got? Who else you got as a curveball?
What about Madonna?
I fucking hate Madonna. No.
Oh, you do?
I vehemently protest.
I didn't know that about you.
I had to endure because Rebecca started
She's
watching.
also an Oscar winner for Evita, and she was in A
don't give a
League of
shit.
Their Own. and-
Rebecca started watching Glee again, and I shamelessly love Glee. It's the most unserious, ridiculous show of all time. I love it so much. But I had to endure the Madonna episode that they did last night, and it just reaffirmed how much I hate Madonna.
Oh man, I love Madonna.
I hate Madonna so much. The only thing
right, so-
Madonna's remembered for
Mandy
cinematically is marrying Guy Ritchie, who also really sucks.
Mandy Moore in the female spot. I'm trying to think. I mean, Courtney Love's a great actress, but she also had something similar to Lady Gaga, where it was kind of a short resume in terms of films.
There's a lot of
what
people.
what
Like
about-
I thought of a Jennifer Hudson in here.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
You know, but she's got a decent acting resume. I mean, she won an Oscar for Dreamgirls. I really love Jennifer Hudson, but I don't know that she's really lit anything on fire because she was in that Aretha Franklin movie as Aretha Franklin. I never saw it though, but I don't remember.
I was thinking Jennifer Hudson too for like modern female,
Yeah.
but what about like Barbara Streisand for like a classic? I don't like Barbara Streisand's music, but now it's obvious that she was known as a music superstar and then kind of transitioned.
I don't think I've ever seen a Barbara Streisand movie though. So
Okay.
I literally couldn't. And I don't think. See, that's the problem with a Madonna. Like, take my dislike of Madonna personally out of it as well. But I don't. I think I've only ever seen the bad Madonna movies that everybody reviles. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anything that she was ever probably even any good in.
Aside from the ones I mentioned, because I want it to be a woman, I didn't have 4 dudes on there. I feel like I was wrong, so I think we have to have a woman on there.
Way too many talented actresses out there.
What
to
about
ignore.
since we're talking about her tonight? What about Selena Gomez? Yes or no? Would she be in consideration? She's great on Only Murders in the Building. She was in. She's actually been in a couple independent films. She's always really, really good, and I thought she was good in this movie too. She was just super underwritten.
God, yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything else Selena Gomez has ever been in either. I don't even think I've ever heard a Selena Gomez song. Holy shit, we're like geriatric.
Taylor
Wasn't
Swift
she a
was in a
Disney
film
Channel?
once.
Wasn't she a Disney Channel person?
Who?
Selena Gomez.
Yeah, I think initially when she was little, yeah. All right, well, you want to roll Mandy Moore then? So let's repeat the Mount Rushmore. So Mandy Moore will be our female representation.
I'm trying to look through your list of there's J-Lo.
I think her J-Lo, but that's a lot of rom-coms. Well, no, she was nominated or should have been nominated for Hustlers a couple years ago.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
you want to talk about a
J-Lo
prolific,
might be a good one.
You want to talk about a prolific film career, though. I would wager a lot of people know her as. I mean, she's J-Lo music-wise, but I would say a lot of people definitely know her for her film work.
Yeah,
I think
Jennifer
J-Lo.
Lopez might
I
be a
honestly
good
think I didn't even see J-Lo. Queen Latifah. How do we not see Queen Latifah? What? Queen
one. Yeah,
Latifah.
that's a good one too.
Queen Latifah's maybe my pick now.
That's
I'm
a
just
good one
looking
too.
through this list now.
Yeah, I'm good with J-Lo or Queen Latifah. They're both great.
Flip a. It's
I
up
think
to you. Pick one of the
I think
two.
I know J-Lo's movies more, and she was just on the brink of her first Oscar nomination a couple years ago for Hustlers. Did you ever see Hustlers?
Yeah. Hustlers was real good. Love that.
That was a
movie.
really good one.
Really good.
So she started kind
She
of
was
doing
really good
dramatic
in
work
it too.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go J-Lo for our female representation up there on the Mount Rushmore. Okay,
I like it.
Let's
See,
do
I
that.
was gonna my one, but I was like, I don't think he's known at all. Like, I think outside of Fight Club and Rocky Horror, I don't think anybody would know Meatloaf's film work. Meatloaf had a film career that spanned like 5 decades. He starred in a ton of movies, but always as like a smaller like character actor kind of thing. Where it was always fun to see him pop up and stuff, but it was always smaller parts. He was never like a lead player in movies. Like I said, the only thing anybody would really remember him in would be obviously Fight Club. His name is Robert Paulson, and obviously Rocky Horror, which is probably the. Well, I wouldn't say the big. It depends on the generation if it's that's your biggest one or not. But I don't think that's enough to put Meatloaf on a Rushmore.
I'm a sucker for Justin Timberlake as an actor too.
I see Justin Timberlake's on my short list too. Like he's done a lot of good stuff too.
So let's repeat it. So we had Elvis Presley on there, and Will Smith. Our female representation was J-Lo.
Could have been in a barbecue.
Jennifer Lopez, and then who else did I pick? What was my second pick? Mark Wahlberg.
Wow,
there we go. Marky Mark. Sorry, Marky Mark.
What?
Good vibrations here. All right, that's
why. Do we take Wahlberg back off of the list now?
No, he's on there for The Happening.
For having been in M. Night Shyamalan movies. Can we just pull them off of there now for that?
Wahlberg's on there for The Happening. That's why he's on the Mount Rushmore. That's the only movie I'm considering putting him on there. All right, next week it is a big release as we're going to be discussing Gladiator 2. Ridley Scott's sequel to his Oscar winner from 2000 with Russell Crowe, this time featuring Paul Mescal and Denzel Washington, probably fucking owning that thing, at least based on the trailers. That's what I'm expecting. So Gladiator 2 will be the main review next week. Nick, thanks for discussing Emilia Perez with me, and hopefully you like Gladiator 2 so that I can get back on the good side of suggesting movies that you don't hate. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You got to like Gladiator 2.
Can we also next week review Glad He Ate Her?
Glad He Ate Her? Oh, the alligator thing or whatever?
No, it's
Gladiator.
Dan gets it because it's a Letterkenny joke, but it's a Glad He Ate Her, Gerald. Glad He Ate Her. Come on.
No, I get what you're saying. I just didn't watch Letterkenny, so I didn't get the joke. But,
Jesus Christ.
All right. Jesus Cristo. All right, man. Go sing in the shower some of these tunes from Emilia Perez. And
I don't remember a single one of them.
I'll get together with you next week and we'll talk Gladiator.
For penis to vagina.
Vagina to penis. Penis.